Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock and welcome to this evening's Licensing and Public Protection Committee being held today, Tuesday, the 5th of September, 2023. Welcome to all. Welcome to our two officers joining us remotely, Mr. Press in the corner, and all those who are watching us on YouTube this evening, which I remind members that we are being recorded and broadcast live on YouTube. So if any members wish to speak, could they use their microphones when doing so? Thank you. We move to the business then for this evening. Part one is licensing. Item one is apologies. I have received apologies from councillors Jill and John Williams. And John Williams has been substituted by Councillor Leslie Richards. I've received further apologies from Councillor Simon White, who has been subbed by Councillor David Hutchinson and Councillor Craig Skelding. Apologies are from Councillor Barker, who will be joining us later on. Item two.
Councillor Wendy Brocky sends her apologies. She was supposed to be substituted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Item two is declarations of interest in relation to licensing matters. Do any members have any declarations of interest on licensing? No. We'll move to item three, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Are members content and happy to receive these as a correct record? Okay. We'll move to the first substantial item of business this evening, which is item 4, which is Business and Planning Act 2020 update. This report can be found on pages 11 to 14 of your agenda. I'll hand over to our officer, Nesta, who will present this report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report is to advise you of some amendments to the Business and Planning Act 2020. It originally came into place to bring about significant changes to help premises, including public houses, premises, cafes, bars and things, survive the bounce back following the pandemic lockdown. And it included two provisions, that of pavement licensing, which was designed to make it easier for premises to serve food and drink on the pavements outside in an outside environment, and also changes to the licensing alcohol regime to allow off sales for premises that only had on sales. So the original temporary changes came into effect and were for a year, so to the 30th of September 2021. There's then been subsequent amendments and extensions to that each year through to 2022, another one till 2023, and then this report is extending those temporary provisions again up until the 30th of September 2024. So we currently have 16 premises that have been granted pavement licensing. There is an intention from government through the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, which is currently working its way through both houses to make pavement licensing regime a permanent fixture with a few minor amendments. But due to the length of time that it's taking for the bill to be finalised, the government have announced the extension of the temporary measures up until the 30th of September 2024. In relation to the premises that benefit from the current off-sale provisions, they were due to expire again on the 30th of September 2023. And if they'd wanted to continue to benefit from the off sales, they would have needed to make an application to the local authority to vary their existing premises licence. However, on the 14th of August this year, the Home Office announced that this relaxation would be extended until the 31st of March 2025 to allow for a permanent solution to be explored. So the proposals are, there's 3 recommendations for members and they remain as per the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nesta. Any members wish to come in on this? Councillor Richards.
There's issues in 2.4 about the council must publish its application on the website and allow people to comment during 5 working days consultation period. The council must consult with the highways. I suppose my ask of that, it says if the council doesn't get back to them within the 5 working days, then the pavement licence will deem to be granted. Do do we think that's a long enough period for the council in the current and climate of multifunctional council workers and cutbacks? If that's a long enough time, do you think?
Maybe I can come back.
Yeah, please.
That's the process that was outlined when the payment license regime came in.
Okay.
Quick process. Rather than, an extended license application. So we have dealt with it during those time periods and we set up to deal with the applications in that manner. So it's a continuation of what we have in place at this moment in time, and that's what the rules in relation to these licenses state.
I'll just think about your workloads, and 5 days seems quite a quick turnaround.
It is, but unfortunately, that's what we have to work to. So,
Councillor Whelan.
Just making the comment that I take your point, but for those people who are wanting a sudden payment license, they do probably want quite a quick response to be able to function from a commercial point of view. So whilst it's hell for you, I think it's a fairly sort of thoughtful thing for some people trying to stay in business.
I suppose my thoughts were that it's automatic if they don't get back to them in the 5 days, and there might be issues with highways or, so that was my own thought when I saw it.
But then there's no detriment to the poor little soul trying to cut a living.
Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. No, I absolutely support this. I say this every time and I'll say it again now. I think when you've got the iron marker on a sunny summer's day and people are outside having a beer or having a cup of coffee or something, I think it looks absolutely delightful. I think it was the thing that was brought in by the government and I absolutely support it. And hopefully quite soon it'll be a regular occurrence so we don't have this having to renew it every so month. It can be the law of the land. I absolutely support this. Thank you.
Members wish to speak? No. Okay, then, are members content and happy to approve as per the recommendations of this report? Yes, I think that's clearly carried. Okay, we'll move on to Public Protection Committee now. So item 5 is declarations of interest in relation to public protection matters. Do any members have any declarations of interest? No. Okay. So item 6 is the Renters Reform Bill. This report can be found on pages 15 to 18 of your agenda. I'll hand back over to Nesta, who will present this report to you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is just to advise members about the Renters Reform Bill. You've most probably seen quite a bit of information in it in the press, really, and it's currently progressing its way through Parliament. So it's really an information report for you. So back in June 22, the government published its white paper, a fairer private rented sector, with the aim of offering a new deal for people living in the private rented sector. Following several delays, the bill was published on the 17th of May 23 and is awaiting a second reading, and it's likely to be in the autumn of this year. It was anticipated that the bill would deal with the 12-point action plan from the 2022 white paper, but around 5 of these points have been dealt with by later legislation. The bill concentrates on the contractual and leasing arrangements, evictions, rent, pets, and the creation of a property portal, an ombudsman scheme for the private rented sector. The commitments for improving living standards, strengthening enforcement where living conditions are of a poor standard and when the landlord is acting in a criminal manner, and bringing homes into a decent standard for private rented sector will be implemented in the future. I will stress the bill's in a very early stage. Much of it is written to enable the introduction of secondary legislation to give effect. But what we've done is, in the report, we've picked out the implications for tenants, and they're summarised in section 2.5. And in summary, that is that the tenancy should be more secure, There's an opportunity to check that potential new homes are registered on the portal. The right to keep a pet is introduced, but like I said, there's no improvement in the quality and standards of living conditions. In relation to the landlord, the implications for that are that criminal and very poor landlords will find it more difficult to operate, given the controls that's being put in place. There's a need to register all properties and associated paperwork on a landlord's portal. Smaller landlords could find it difficult to operate economically with the more restrictive system that's been put in place with the bill. However, some small to medium-sized professional landlords have commented that they don't anticipate the new proposals to cause them particular difficulties. In relation to the council, there's a number of implications for ourselves. So the disparity between well-resourced and poorly resourced enforcement teams will have to be addressed to achieve a consistency across England. Clause 58, which is one which requires the council to take formal enforcement action for a range of new offences in relation to both the registration of the landlord's tenancy provisions, harassment and unlawful evictions. They're all duties that will come to us, and those provisions have been strengthened within the bill. And corresponding to that, there'll be an increased activity in relation to poor living conditions that may come along with the additional requirements as those progress. So if landlords also choose to leave the sector, it will increase the number of tenants being asked to leave their current homes and through the service of notice. And that's likely to cause an increase in homeless presentations to the council, which could place additional pressure on social housing waiting lists. So we've done a bit of research in terms of the private rented sector in Newcastle, and in 2021, 14.5% of our properties, that's approximately 8,100 properties in Newcastle, were private rented properties. I think in terms of the summaries, in terms of the implications in relation to the bill, they're the main provisions. I think what we'll need to do is members are being asked to note the progression of the bill, the impact on tenants, the potential impact on our own Newcastle housing advice and enforcement functions. And I think as it progresses through the system, then we'll bring some further updates to you and clarify some of those requirements as when we get further information. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Nesta. Do any members have any questions for Nesta? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Nesta. I really welcome this legislation, particularly in terms of increasing security for tenants and tenants having that security and the feeling that this is a home. But I do have a couple of questions for you, and I'm not sure if it's within the remit of this discussion. It might be for a further discussion. In terms of security of tenancy, we're frequently hearing that landlords are using their homes for B&B and short lets, Airbnb and short lets, and also affordability checks where tenants are being asked to pay a large amount of rent up front. Is there any detail about those kind of challenges for tenants, please?
For short-term lets and Airbnbs, no, there's no provisions within the bill looking at those. Obviously, what this is trying to do is make a simpler and more consistent tenancy arrangement. So it should help in terms of those agreements that are in place and add some consistency across the sector in relation to it. Obviously, in terms of setting rent and things like that, that obviously isn't covered within the bill, but there is also provision that, you know, there is an ombudsman service in relation to the sector, which is being put forward as well as proposals.
Thank you, Nesta. As always, the devil's in the detail, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Councillor Wheeldon.
The report says 8,190 properties, 14.5% rented. Is that a large number of landlords, or does it fall into groups like Aspire? You know, the larger landlords.
Yeah, no, this is the private rented sector,
Private
so
rented.
it wouldn't include any housing associations properties at all. This
So
is
they're all
purely-
individual small land.
Yeah, private rented, not housing associations.
Thank you.
Don't see any raise of hands, so I think our members happy to note the contents of this report going forward with it. Yep, okay. Item 7 then is the revocation of Little Madeley Air Quality Management Area. This report can be found on pages 19 to 26 of your agenda. I'll hand once again back to Nesta, who will present this report to you.
Thank you, Chair. So back in 2015, an air quality management area was declared and agreed by this committee in Little Madeley. And that was in relation to exceedances of nitrogen dioxide. There's a legal limit set for nitrogen dioxide, which is 40 micrograms per cubic metre at an annual average level. Nitrogen dioxide is typically produced from car exhausts or combustions. And the area in Little Madeley is properties adjacent to the M6, and it was experiencing quite high levels in relation to that. In terms of monitoring, we've been continuing the monitoring at that location, and you'll be able to see on page 20 at table 1 and graph 1 that over several years, that number of 40, the legal limit has not been met. The nitrogen dioxide levels have been continually reducing, which is really, really good news. Because of that reduction, DEFRA, who review our air quality reports, have said, due to the consistency of those results, that we need to look at revoking the air quality management areas. A report came to you in December last year to ask to consider the revocation of that and to go out to public consultation. We've done that public consultation and we have received no comments or no objections in relation to the consultation exercise. So the recommendation coming back to committee is that we formally approve the Little Madeley Air Quality Management Area Revocation Order 2023, which is attached at Appendix 2 of the report, and for this to take effect from the 6th of September 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nesta. Any members have any questions or comments? Okay, then, are the committee content with formally approving this report? I think it's, everyone's in agreement there. We'll move on to item 8 then, which is the Public Space Protection Order Gating Consultation Update. This report can be found on pages 27 to 50 of your agenda. I will ask Jason, who is joining us remotely this evening, if he can present this report to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the paper tonight is obviously to provide the committee with the outcome of the final 6-week public consultation on the proposed partial and full closures of 3 public rights of way in the Borough. The recommendations were to consider the content of this report and give approval for the public space protection order for gating to be granted, as long as obviously everybody's in approval to that. If you move to point 2.3 from the consultation, it's got the key findings from the consultation that happened, and following the final 6-week consultation period, the results can be found in Appendix 5. You can now see the results from that. There were 70 respondents, all responded to Newcastle 132, 11 responded to Kidsgrove 19, 11 responded to Kidsgrove, and 19 responded to Newcastle 143. Through pretty much all of those, complete support was given for each of those, and all respondents to Kidsgrove 19 answered yes to every question. Also, just a side note from that, we've also had a letter of from Staffordshire Fire and Rescue in support of obviously the BT Avenue one. So Newcastle 132, they're happy with what we've proposed for those. There was no further changes to the draft order, and from the draft order were proposed as a result of the final 6-week consultation. Therefore, it is proposed to approve the order without further amendments. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Nesta, the letter he's referring to, is that the one that was, yeah. Do any members have any questions for Jace? Councillor Richards?
So, I'm not in disagreement. I just wanted to know who would have access, for example, to the one on in Maybank that goes from Silverdale Road to the marsh? Is it the residents that have access to the gates?
You mean when they're locked with the keys?
If they were locked, yeah. If they were locked.
The keys are going to stay within the council. Obviously,
Right.
if there was ever any access needed, we could make arrangement for that. Obviously, within our MMF team, we're going to have 3 rangers that can quite easily accommodate that. Street scene would be able to accommodate anybody that needed access to that. And that would go for like things like BT Avenue as well. So say, for example, somebody wanted to do any works on the back and they drastically needed access to that, we could obviously accommodate that.
Okay. So on BT Avenue, is that just a path going through?
Yeah, it's the path that runs right through the back. If you look on the map for it, yeah.
I'm just thinking, have they got access at the back, the residents?
They've got access through the back of their own properties, yes.
Yeah, so they'll have keys to that to the end of the
to the gates again. I think they're going to stay with us. If there was any need for the access works, as in any building works or anything like that, that's the arrangements that can be made through ourselves.
All right, so residents won't be able to kind of go through those gates at all?
No, that was
their properties.
No, that was part of the consultation as well, just to show the alternative routes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further questions? So our members are happy to consider the contents of this report and the recommendations that are put before you. Okay, that's carried.
Thank you, Chair.
We'll move to item 9, which is updates on results of taxi licensing appeals. So I'll hand over to Nesta, who will inform you of the latest.
Thank you, Chair. I think this was published with a report to follow. Unfortunately, we don't have any updates. There hasn't been any court hearings in between time. So any that are rescheduled and heard, we'll prepare a report for your next committee.
Thank you, Nesta. Moving on to item 10, which is the minutes of the Public Protection Subcommittee meetings. The minutes for this meeting can be found on pages 51 to 52 of your agenda. Councillor Brown.
For the record, Chair, on page 51, it says that the councillors present, I attended this hearing and I'm recorded, but Councillor Jill Williams was there and I think yourself was there, and they're not recorded on the actual minutes on page 51.
Yes, thunder not quite being stolen. I was going to wait to see if anybody was to notice that, but yeah, if you could make a note, please, that Councillor Jill Williams was in replacement of Councillor Jill Heaton. Item 11 is disclosure of exempt information, which we don't have any, and urgent business, which I've not received any, but there is additional supplement from Nesta. So hand back over to Nesta.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to update in terms of training. Obviously, we did some licensing and public protection training with James Button a couple of weeks ago, and those that attended, I hope you found that very useful. But we've been asked to do a licensing training or briefing before full council on the 20th of September. So anybody that was unable to attend that, I would urge you to be able to attend the in-house training that we'll provide on that date. I think Jeff will circulate some further details in relation to it, but it'll be for the pre-meet before full council on the 20th of September.
Nesta, is that different than the button thing we had?
It will be different insofar as it won't be so detailed, but it is an overview in terms of licensing. So it's not necessarily specifically for this committee. It is for so all members have an awareness about licensing. It's one of the topics that does crop up quite often, and it's just to improve that awareness. But equally, it will act as an add-on for anybody that came. If you came to the Jim Button, which was a full day's training, we're certainly not going to be able to cover that amount of detail in the training session beforehand. And it's not with Jim, it'll be with myself and Matt.
And that concludes this evening's business. The next meeting will be held on Tuesday, October the 24th. All that's left for me to say is enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night.